Road to Housing Act has already run out of road, it seems. A road to nowhere, you might suggest, because it ain't going anywhere in the House right now, and this is the problem. Freedom Caucus doesn't like it. They've got their own version, and they say that's more conservative. Maybe more importantly, you see in Punch Bowl, Speaker Johnson says he got on the phone with the president this week who said, "No one gives a bleep about housing, Mike." I would have read it like that, but I don't want producer James to actually have to bleep me. So it's going nowhere. Nathan Dean joins us in the clutch from Bloomberg Intelligence. We usually spend time on a Monday, but we wanted to wait for this moment when the 21st Century Road to Housing Act passed Congress, an historic marker here, Nathan Dean, except it isn't really, is it?
I think it can pass the House, but it's going to need time to cook. I mean, look, there's three aspects to this bill that we're really writing about. One is this idea of cutting regulatory red tape. It's great messaging. We don't see it actually changing really the calculus in terms of making homes more affordable. Certainly will make it more affordable in terms of like closing costs and so forth like that, but it's not going to change, like, I think in terms of home builders, we're not seeing any real impact there. The second one is this idea of an institutional ban. Now, this is for firms that own 350 single-family homes right now, so think single-family REITs. But there's two provisions tied to this that we're going to see come up in the House negotiations. One is build-to-rent communities are impacted here. And secondly, that there's this language where you have to dispose of your rental income or your rental communities within 7 years. And that's something that, look, you don't want to build a community and then say, hey, I have to get rid of it in 7 years. So that's another holdup. And then third is this idea of a central bank digital currency. The Senate plan has a ban that, bans the CBDC up until 2030. Some people want it to be longer. Now, like you just mentioned, the House, a lot of people are not happy with this. We think it's going to fester for a couple of weeks. But in that Punch Bowl piece, they quoted Senator Kennedy, who said the White House needs to come, and I'm paraphrasing here, knock some heads into Pluto. Essentially, that's where if this bill is going to pass, the White House is going to have to come and say, look, I want this thing done because we need to address affordability before we get to the midterms.
But that would require the president giving a bleep about housing.
Exactly.
Right? And apparently does not right now.
No, and when the president says on the SAVE Act, for example, I'm not signing any legislation, yes, the Senate can pass a bill, the House can pass a bill, it can go to the president, and if the president doesn't sign within 10 days, it can become law. So there is a workaround around that. But, when the president says that, like, I'm not signing anything, and the Save America Act is the key bill for him ahead of the midterms, if we don't see that political capital from the White House, then this thing's going to fester for the rest of the term.
Wow, all right. So this goes to conference committee. And you're suggesting that within a couple of weeks, they come out with a product that everybody's happy with, or at least can pass.
I don't know if it's within the next couple of weeks, but I think there is a product here that everybody can live with. I mean, the first portion I meant, the cutting regulatory red tape, bipartisan. Yes, the Freedom Caucus isn't really exactly happy with this, but I think there is overwhelming bipartisan look. It just got 85 plus votes in the Senate. Right. When it comes to the institutional homes, there are a lot of exemptions in here. And also remember, when President Trump said that, when this first came out, Blackstone in particular took a 5% hit in the markets due to headline risk. Blackstone's exposure to this is less than 0.5% of assets under management. So private equity isn't really in here. And for those single family REITs, there's enough exemptions in here that will largely protect them.
So that's not even an impact.
It's the language over the disposal.
Really interesting.
That's the key here. So they can work something out.
Interesting. So by the end of the year, you running odds on this? Or
we're at 60%.
You are 60%?
Yep.
Did you just hear how negative I was the way he turned that whole thing around? Okay, great. Maybe you can do that for DHS. Because we're on day 27. No one's counting. Apparently no one cares unless you work for the poor TSA. What was this, Denver? They're asking people to bring canned goods and gas cards to these poor guys. By the way, you fly more than I do, I think. You may not love the TSA. This is God, what a thankless job. It's a troubled agency, and I get all that. But thank these people. You'll be amazed at how grateful they are to be acknowledged, right? I bet America's dad says thanks at the airport.
The ones out in Dulles and DCA are the best in the nation.
They actually really are. And my God, they're on the front line. So they're missing paychecks now. It's real. We're at this point.
Yep.
But there doesn't seem to be any additional pressure from it.
Not yet. It's coming. I mean, obviously, look, when one of our producers was flying to New Orleans this weekend and he was telling me in the pantry, he's concerned.
Well, so he got caught up in that 5-hour line.
And so we heard the lines coming out of JFK and Newark and so forth like that. But, we are still at the point where if you go to the social media platforms and you look up the Senate Republicans and you look up the Senate Democrats, they are putting out the same statement, just replace the party and say that this party is blaming for these long lines. They have to get this through their motions. But the situation is only going to get worse and worse and worse. And in the 2018 2018 shutdown, the TSA sick-out rate was at 10%. Now, I haven't seen the new rates of what they are right now, but as you get further and further, a lot of these TSA agents are going to say, you know what, I'm calling in sick and I'm driving Ubers. So as the line gets worse and worse, the Republicans and Democrats are going to have to come back and solve this.
Yeah.
But right now, they're still in that like first stage or second stage of that 10-stage process where they're just still trying to blame the other party.
Good Lord. All right. If you're a TSA agent, you're driving Uber, and you're listening to Bloomberg Radio, send us a note right now. Producer James has taken a look at the vote here, by the way, as we reverse gears for just a moment on this housing bill. The no votes, gosh, only one Democrat, Brian Schatz. The rest, Bud, Cruz, Johnson, Lee, Paul, Scott, Tillis, Tuberville, and Young. Any surprises there?
No, and the Senator Schatz, he put out a statement yesterday, and he actually spoke on the floor against this idea of the specific language related to the institutional housing. So, what I'll just say is that when it comes back to the housing, note that it just has to come down to the White House's political capital in this, because there's really nothing here that says, look, we've been telling this with our clients. There's only about 5 or 6 bills or packages, if you will, that we think will pass between now and the midterms. Highway bill, farm bill, the continuing resolution that we think is going to come in September, maybe a crypto bill. So if there's anything that you want to get done and have a good message going into the midterms, now's your chance.
Right.
And so, now's not the time. You still have some time to figure it out. But, look for the White House. It's up to them in the next couple of weeks.
Brendan in the control room is flying home to New Orleans tomorrow. We're going to have can you guinea pig that for us, Brendan? We want to know what's happening down there. Maybe I'll actually venture. Because, by the way, the other big story that's coming are airline fares are going to be through the roof here in a minute because of what's happening in the oil patch. Talk to me about this Save America Act, though. You referenced it. The president says that's his priority. He's not going to sign anything else first. But they're talking about attaching FISA 702 to this thing up there. They're talking about a lot of things that might make this impossible for John Thune.
Well, the latest I heard is that Senator Thune was thinking about bringing it to the floor next week as a measure, which only requires 50 votes. But ultimately, you would still need 60 votes to actually pass the SAVE Act.
Yes.
Now, a lot of talk about the filibuster. We don't think the filibuster is going away, whether it's the filibuster or this idea of a talking filibuster. We don't see any of that changing. But the most important thing is that when the Save America Act comes together, like you mentioned, when things get attached, all of a sudden it balloons up into something that nobody wants to touch. We've seen the same thing with reconciliation. Speaker Johnson said that he wants to do a reconciliation bill, maybe tied to Iranian defense. But if you get Iranian defense in there, the farmers are going to say, I want my $15 billion in aid in there. Next thing you know, you get something bigger, so you get something bigger. And so $200 billion reconciliation idea all of a sudden balloons up to $1.2 trillion. And that's when we think, just because of the House of Representatives, the margin there is just so thin, we don't think a reconciliation bill can pass this year. So do it all in a supplemental, right? President's going to show up pretty soon with a supplemental budget request. All that stuff that could have been in reconciliation can be added to this soon-to-be Christmas tree because nobody wants to vote against the troops. Yeah, but if it's small and concentrated, like call it 200, 400 billion, we're still waiting on the number. Call it 200, 400 billion. Is that what you're hearing? Something in that? Is that... I mean, I realize that's a big... We're not hearing anything. We're just trying... We've done our analysis. Obviously, Bloomberg News reported the Pentagon was thinking 50 billion. Yeah. But Wayne Sanders, our senior defense analyst, has... 200 to 400. No, he's put out another analysis saying 50 to 100 billion. Okay. But, just this idea of, look, if it took 6 days to spend 11.3 billion... Give us the reality check. And you also have to remember, is the One Big Beautiful Bill also gave them $150 billion. That gets them through most of 2026. And so we're actually talking about munition expenditures for 2027. Got it. So if you're trying to model off the Iranian supplemental defense bill for your contractor outlooks, think 2027. 2026 is already baked in. Got it. But a small concentrated package where it's just defense funds plus farm aid, I think that can pass. That gets bipartisan support. Anything larger than that, it gets ballooned bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And that's where it gets tricky. Are you getting the colonel's calls now when people ask you about defense spending, or that's what you're hearing on the other end of the row? Oh, we like to communicate back and forth. Do you just transfer, I can't do that. Let me pass you over to Colonel Sanders. We have a IB chat that's open, and our clients are allowed to IB us at any time. Is that right? That's amazing. How cool is that? The benefits of having a terminal. What's the biggest worry you're hearing when the phone rings these days? Because we can find uncertainty in every corner of the market. Think of what we've just already discussed. Well, obviously, I think from the fixed income side, it was the size of this reconciliation bill. If they want to know, are you going to see $1 trillion spending going into the economy or leading to an increase of the deficit? We don't think that's the case. The bank investors, obviously, the Fed Vice Chair Michelle Bowman just gave a speech at Cato detailing out the Basel III endgame and the GSIB surcharge proposals, which will come out next Thursday. This is actually, in terms of their capital requirements, there's a little bit smaller decrease than what was initially expected. I think some of the GSIB investors may be a little disappointed.
All right.
But if you're what's called a DSIB investor, meaning like a Capital One or PNC, you should be pretty happy.
Oh, man, we got the old Nathan back. We haven't done Basel III in a long time. We got to bring the T-shirts back out, James. Hey, it's snowing at the White House. Do we have a beauty shot for everybody on YouTube? Look at this. It's back to winter. It was 85 degrees here yesterday. What's wrong with this picture? Nathan Dean, thank you. We'll assemble our political panel next, only here on Bloomberg.